I finally bought a home and invited everyone over. Yet not a single person arrived. They all rushed off to see my brother's flashy new car instead. As I lit up the empty house, my phone buzzed. Mom said, "We need to talk about the house." What came after was beautiful karma. I'm a 29-year-old woman, and everything I'm about to describe unfolded over the past year. But to make sense of how wild it got, I need to lay out some family history first. Growing up, I was always the kid on the sidelines, the one who faded into the background while my younger brother, Shane, now 27, seemed to shine without even trying. He was tall, naturally athletic, charming in a way I never managed to be, the obvious favorite. Mom spent every spare minute shuttling him to football practice while I stayed home messing around with engines in our garage. Dad liked that I could fix things for him when he needed an extra pair of hands, but it was obvious whose activities the family revolved around. When Shane landed a partial football scholarship to State University, the celebration felt like a national holiday. Mom cried happy tears, and our whole family happily drove 3 hours at a time to watch his games. I went to community college to study automotive tech, because I knew exactly what I wanted, but didn't have the money for a 4-year school. Shane made it to junior year before blowing out his knee, and instead of finishing his degree, he just quit and moved back home. Mom defended every choice he made, even while he burned through a ridiculous amount of money, and meanwhile I had already graduated and was working full-time at Peterson's Auto Service, starting with oil changes and slowly earning my way upward. For 5 years I watched Shane hop from job to job, car lots, furniture stores, electronics shops, always hyping up his next big opportunity while Mom cushioned every fall. If he got fired for showing up late, she helped him rewrite his resume. When he spent an entire paycheck on designer clothes, she quietly covered whatever bills he couldn't. Meanwhile, I lived in a tiny studio apartment, pinching every penny, working 6 days a week, inhaling more ramen than anyone should, driving an ancient Honda Civic I kept alive myself. I barely had a social life, but I held on to one goal with both hands: owning a home, my own real place. Last spring, after 5 relentless years, I finally saved enough for a down payment and found the perfect little ranch house on Maple Street. 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, a decent kitchen, and best of all, a 2-car garage I could turn into a real workshop. The list price was $185,000, and I managed to put down $37,000. Closing day felt like the pinnacle of my entire adult life. When the realtor put the keys in my hand, I sat in my car staring at my new home for a solid 10 minutes, taking in the fact that there would be no more thin walls, no more landlords, no more feeling like I was just passing through. This was actually mine, something I earned through years of sacrifice. That Thursday night I walked through each empty room planning out where everything would go. This bedroom would be an office, that one a guest room, and the garage would finally become the workshop I'd always imagined. I felt a pride so huge it almost hurt. Every night I'd lived on noodles while Shane ate at restaurants, every weekend of overtime while he slept till noon. Everything had led to this moment. On Friday, I took a personal day just to clean the house from top to bottom, even though it was already spotless, because I wanted it to be perfect for the housewarming party I planned for Saturday. Nothing fancy. Snacks, sodas, maybe some pizzas, and I even splurged on a sheet cake with "Congratulations, Molly" written in blue icing. I felt the kind of excitement I used to feel when I was a kid waiting for Christmas morning. I kept picturing Dad walking through the place with that subtle nod he does when he's impressed, Mom getting teary-eyed, maybe even Shane cracking a joke but offering to help move a few things. That evening, I sent a message to our family group chat: "Housewarming party tomorrow at 4 p.m. Can't wait to show everyone the new place. First round of sodas is on me." The only response was a single thumbs-up emoji from my cousin Evan. That was it. No "we're proud of you," no "can't wait." Not even someone asking for the address. I figured they were just busy and would reply later, so I went to bed practically buzzing with anticipation. Saturday showed up with perfect weather. Sunny, a soft breeze, the kind of day that just feels good to be alive. I woke up at 7 without an alarm because I was way too excited to sleep. I spent the morning setting out borrowed folding chairs, organizing my playlist, checking every detail. Around noon I scheduled the pizza delivery for 5 p.m. 1 pepperoni, 1 supreme. I bought ice, paper plates, even congratulatory napkins because I wanted everything to feel special. By 3:30 the house was ready. Music playing lightly, snacks arranged, sodas chilling in ice, vanilla candles making the whole place smell warm and welcoming. Sunlight poured through the windows. 4 o'clock came and went. No cars but mine. By 4:30, still nothing. I kept checking my phone, convinced I had missed a message or that traffic was holding them up. 5 o'clock rolled around, and the silence felt deafening. The pizza guy arrived right on time and looked confused to see only me there. I paid him, tipped extra because I felt embarrassed, and carried both pizzas into my empty house. Out of habit, I opened Instagram, and that's where I saw it. My entire extended family gathered in the parking lot of Shane's apartment complex, not 15 minutes from my house. Mom, Dad, Shane, both sets of grandparents, all the aunts and uncles, cousins I hadn't seen in forever, every last one of them standing around a bright orange Dodge Challenger RT with black racing stripes and a giant red bow slapped on the hood like some commercial. Shane was front and center wearing a brand new leather jacket, arms crossed, grinning like he'd hit the jackpot. Mom had her arm around him looking like she might burst from pride. Dad was under the hood checking out the engine. Even my usually quiet grandma was smiling like she was 30 years younger. Mom's caption read, "So incredibly proud of our Shane. Dreams really do come true when you never give up and keep believing in yourself. This is just the beginning." The comments said everything you'd expect. "Beautiful car, Shane. You earned this. Way to go. Success looks good on you. Your mom raised you right. This is what hard work brings." I scrolled through dozens of comments, each one feeling like a punch to the chest. The timestamp showed they'd all been celebrating for over an hour. All of them 15 minutes away, and not a single person thought to stop by, even for 2 minutes, to see the home I'd worked 5 years to buy. I finally set my phone down and stared around at my empty living room. The cake sat untouched on my kitchen table. The bright blue frosting that had looked so cheerful earlier now feeling almost sad in a way I couldn't ignore. The folding chairs I'd borrowed were still arranged in a neat circle, a setup meant for guests who clearly were never going to sit in them. The sodas I'd bought would probably take up space in my refrigerator for weeks, and the pizza boxes on my counter filled the whole house with the heavy smell of pepperoni and cheese even though I couldn't bring myself to take a single bite. I shut off the music and just stood there in the silence, trying to wrap my head around everything. This wasn't some simple oversight or people running late. This had been a conscious decision. My entire family had chosen to celebrate Shane's new car instead of my new home. They picked his moment over mine, his success over mine, his joy over mine. I'd always known I ranked below him in our family's unspoken order, but seeing it laid out so clearly and so publicly hit me harder than I'd prepared for. I walked out onto my back deck and sat on the steps, looking out at the small yard with its old oak tree and the garden space I'd planned to build out someday. This house represented 5 years of grinding, of discipline and saying no to every little indulgence. It represented all the weekends I'd stayed home instead of going out, every overtime shift I'd volunteered for, and every tiny luxury I'd convinced myself I didn't need. It proved that even the quiet, overlooked sister could build something real through determination and work. But apparently none of that held any weight next to Shane's shiny new muscle car. I stayed out there until the sun dipped away, just thinking about the way families operate and what it means to be valued. When I finally stepped back inside, the house felt bizarrely large and almost hollow, like I was walking through a museum display dedicated to my own ambition. Around 8, my phone lit up with my mom's contact photo, the one from Shane's high school graduation where she's glowing with pride. Part of me wanted to ignore the call, but another part hoped she might be reaching out to apologize or explain that somehow they'd lost track of time and were planning to swing by with leftover cake and some kind of belated enthusiasm. Instead, the moment I answered, she said, "Molly," without even acknowledging the housewarming I'd invited them to just 4 hours earlier. Her voice had this odd mix of excitement and forced casualness, like she was gearing up to ask me for a routine favor. "We need to talk about Shane using your house," she said. For a second I honestly thought I'd misunderstood her. Using it? For what? She continued as though this was the most natural thing in the world. She explained that his new job was on the north side of town, and that the drive from his apartment during rush hour would be brutal. It made far more sense, she said, if he stayed at my place during the work week. I was standing in my kitchen surrounded by untouched party food, trying to process what she was telling me. My mother, who had spent the entire afternoon celebrating Shane's new car instead of my new home, was now suggesting that he live in the house I had just bought. Mom, this is my house, I said. Of course it is, and we're all so proud of you, she replied quickly, like she was checking a box before moving on. Then she launched into how Shane had finally landed this incredible opportunity at Morrison Luxury Automotive, the kind of dealership that sold BMWs and Audis and catered to doctors and lawyers. She talked about how amazing the commission could be and how much appearance mattered in that business. I knew that dealership's reputation well. They hired anyone willing to work on pure commission, and most newbies washed out in a few months when they realized how tough it was to build a client base. This would just be temporary, she insisted. Just until he can afford a place closer to work. You've got all those extra bedrooms sitting empty anyway. Extra bedrooms sitting empty, as though I had bought a house specifically to run a boarding program for relatives who couldn't get their own lives sorted out. Then she added that he could maybe contribute to the mortgage, though her tone made that sound like more of a theoretical concept than an actual promise. I looked around my kitchen with the clean counters and the appliances I'd saved up to buy, and tried to picture Shane's dirty dishes stacked in the sink. Mom, nobody came to my housewarming today. Oh honey, Shane's car situation just came together at the last minute, she said, breezing past the hurt in my voice. The dealership has those Saturday promotions, and everything moved so quickly. We would have come by afterward, but it got so late with all the paperwork and celebrating. The dealership closed at 6. It was 8:15, but she kept right on going, saying this was a golden chance for Shane. How hard things had been for him since his knee injury ruined his college plans. How this could be the job that finally changed everything. Family helps family, Molly, she added, like that settled the matter. Family helps family, but somehow it always flowed one way. I need time to think about this, I told her, mostly because I needed to hang up before something sharp slipped out of my mouth. What's there to think about? She asked, genuinely puzzled. He's not moving in permanently, just weekday nights. He's going to be working such long hours you'll barely notice he's around. After we hung up, I walked through all 3 bedrooms, the one she described as just sitting there unused. My house. The house I'd earned by working 60-hour weeks. The house not one person in my family had bothered to visit or celebrate. And now they wanted to treat it like some shared family asset that could be reassigned whenever it made life easier for Shane. I made myself a sandwich from the leftover supplies and ate it at my kitchen table in total silence, trying to understand how in just one day I'd gone from being an excited homeowner hosting a celebration to someone whose family was already plotting how to repurpose her property to better serve her brother's needs. The next morning greeted me with a harsh reality check in the form of 8 new messages in our family group chat. 8 messages about Shane's living situation, all sent while I was asleep. Mom had written, Molly, Shane really needs an answer about the house arrangement. His first day is Monday. Dad chimed in right after with, don't overthink this, kiddo. It's the practical choice. Then Shane added, dude, I already told my new boss I might have the commute handled. Don't make me look bad on day 1. Uncle Rick followed with, help your brother out, Molly. This could be big for him. And Grandma Helen sent, Shane's such a hard worker. You should be supportive. Shane texted again, insisting, it's literally just a place to crash Monday through Thursday. I'll bring my own food. Evan tossed in, come on, let him stay. What's the worst that happens? And Aunt Linda wrapped it up with, family sticks together. Don't be stubborn. Staring at those messages, I realized that sometime during the night this had shifted from a request to an assumed agreement. Shane had already told his boss he had housing worked out. My family had collectively decided this was happening. Not one of them asked how I felt about someone essentially moving into my home, using my utilities and occupying my personal space. They simply determined that since I had extra rooms, Shane was entitled to use one. By noon, Mom was calling again. I let it roll to voicemail, but she left a message I replayed twice trying to make sense of her reasoning. Molly, sweetheart, I don't understand why you're being so difficult. Shane is under a tremendous amount of pressure with this new job. His car payment alone is $670 plus insurance plus gas. He needs our support right now, and you're the only one who can give him the specific help he needs. This is what families do when someone gets a real opportunity. Hearing her say that made my jaw tighten. Over $1,000 a month just for a car. My entire mortgage, covering a whole house with taxes and insurance, was $1,940. That afternoon I drove over to my parents' place because this was spinning out of control, and I needed to confront it face to face before it snowballed even further. Shane's bright orange Challenger dominated their driveway, gleaming like it had been freshly polished. Through the window, I saw him stretched out on the couch in yet another new outfit, some designer-looking shirt and pants that probably cost more than my monthly grocery budget. I knocked and Mom opened the door wearing an eager, almost celebratory smile, as if I were arriving to help finalize something wonderful. "Molly, perfect timing," she said. "Come in. We were just figuring out the logistics." Logistics, like they were arranging travel plans for a trip we had all agreed to take together. I walked into the living room where Dad sat in his recliner reading the newspaper, and Shane lounged on the couch scrolling his phone. The coffee table was buried under papers, employment documents, insurance forms, and a notebook filled with Mom's handwriting. "So," Mom began with bright enthusiasm, "we were thinking Shane should use the bedroom closest to the main bathroom. He'll need easy access in the mornings, and that room has the best natural light for getting his work clothes ready." I cut her off immediately. I didn't agree to any of this. Shane glanced up, looking mildly irritated, like I'd interrupted something unimportant. "Molly, what's the big deal? I'm not asking you for a kidney. Just somewhere to sleep Monday through Thursday." "The big deal is that it's my house," I said. Mom's smile faltered for a moment before she plastered it back on. "Of course it's your house, honey, but you're not even using those rooms for anything major." Not using them for anything major. One room was supposed to be my office. Another was meant for guests. The third I'd envisioned as a small project workshop. But apparently none of that mattered compared to making Shane's commute easier. "I worked 5 years for that house," I said, trying to keep calm. 5 years of 60-hour weeks, cheap meals, and driving a car with over 200,000 miles on it. I didn't go through all that so Shane could have a free crash pad. Dad spoke up without taking his eyes off the paper. "Nobody said anything about free. He'll pay his share." "With what money?" I snapped. "He hasn't even started the job." Mom jumped in quickly. "He'll pay you back once the commission checks start rolling in. Morrison Luxury has great pay for successful salespeople." Successful salespeople. Shane had been fired from his last 4 jobs because he couldn't show up on time or stay focused. Yet suddenly this new role was his golden ticket. "Look," Shane said, finally lowering his phone and facing me. "I get that you're proud of the house and everything. But be realistic, okay? You're not exactly Miss Social Life. It's not like you're hosting parties or having guests over every week. Those bedrooms are just wasted space while I'm dealing with this brutal commute." Just wasted space. Like I had bought a house specifically to provide free lodging for family members who overspent and mismanaged their lives. "Shane, get your own apartment," I said. His face flushed with anger, or maybe embarrassment. "With what money, Molly? First month, last month deposit? That's at least $3,000 up front, even for a dump. And I've got the car payment, insurance, and the clothes I need for this job." "Then maybe you shouldn't have bought a car with a $670 payment," I said. The room fell dead silent. Dad finally looked up. Mom's mouth dropped open. Shane stared at me like I just committed some unforgivable insult. "That car is an investment in my future," he said slowly, his voice tight and edged with anger. Shane kept insisting that you can't sell luxury cars while showing up in some beat-up little commuter vehicle, that in high-end sales your image matters more than even having a stable place to live. He shrugged and said he'd have a place to stay at my house anyway since I had empty bedrooms I wasn't using. Like that somehow justified everything. The circular reasoning actually made my head throb. He needed the pricey car to land the job. The pricey car prevented him from getting an apartment. Therefore I was supposed to hand over free housing so he could afford the pricey car that supposedly kept the job. "I'm not doing this," I said, standing up. Mom rose too, her voice suddenly sharp and urgent. "Molly, sit down. If you keep being stubborn, Shane will have no choice but to rent some tiny, overpriced apartment way out in the suburbs, and then he'll be exhausted from the long commute, and that will hurt his performance, and then he'll lose this incredible shot." "That's his issue, not mine," I said. Shane shot up from the couch as well, his face now a full shade of angry red. "You know what, Molly? I always figured when you finally had something good going in your life, You'd want to share it with your family. Guess I misjudged the kind of person you really are. The guilt trip was so blatant it was almost comical. Poor Shane, burdened by a sister who wouldn't give up her privacy and space to compensate for his financial disasters. You're right, I said as I headed toward the door. You were wrong about me. I walked out without saying anything else, though I heard Mom's voice rising behind me, lecturing me about family loyalty and how badly I was disappointing her. That evening the phone calls started rolling in like clockwork. Uncle Rick, Aunt Linda, both grandmas, even my cousin Evan, who had been grinning in the background of Shane's car celebration. Your mom's really upset, Evan told me. She says Shane might have to sleep in his car because he can't afford gas for the commute. Sleep in his car? The $40,000 car with the heated leather seats? There are extended stay motels, I said. With what money? He shot back. His first commission check won't come in for a month or two. That same question everyone kept asking, as though Shane's complete lack of planning was my personal responsibility to fix. On Tuesday evening, I was still at the shop finishing a brake job when I got a text from Shane. Thanks for nothing, sis. Crashing in the parking lot tonight because I can't afford gas to drive home. Hope your empty bedrooms are worth it. I didn't answer. I cleaned up, locked the shop, and drove home to my house with its 3 bedrooms that somehow had become the focal point of major family outrage just because Shane wasn't sleeping in one of them. Wednesday morning brought more messages, this time with photos. Shane had taken pictures of himself sitting in the Challenger in different parking lots around town. Outside a 24-hour gym behind a McDonald's, tucked in the corner of a shopping center. Each picture came with some melodramatic caption blaming me for forcing him into this situation. The manipulation was so transparent it was almost insulting. Poor Shane. Reduced to sleeping in his luxury sports car because his heartless sister wouldn't hand over free housing. By Thursday, the family pressure had reached a totally absurd level. When I got home from work, Dad's pickup was in my driveway. He sat on my front step still in his construction clothes, looking worn out and older than his 53 years. We need to talk, he said when I got out of my car. I unlocked the door and we walked inside. Dad glanced around at my living room, taking in my furniture, my TV, my books, like he was seeing a version of my life he'd never bothered to notice before. Your mother is beside herself, he said, diving right in. Shane's been sleeping in that car for 3 nights now. This is tearing her up. He's using his gym membership to shower and eating fast food constantly. Molly, this isn't sustainable. I sat across from him, noticing how he was describing Shane's situation like it was a series of unfortunate accidents, rather than the result of his own choices. Dad, he could get a studio apartment for $800 a month. With what money for the deposit? He spent his savings on work clothes and the car down payment. And there it was yet again, the same question that always landed in my lap like I was the solution to every financial mess he created. Shane's your brother, Dad said. Family helps family. I've been helping this family for years, I reminded him. I covered Shane's half of your birthday dinner when he was broke. I let him borrow my car for job interviews after his got repossessed. I fixed Mom's washing machine for free when you couldn't afford a repairman. When exactly do I get to have something that's just mine? Dad shifted uncomfortably, avoiding my eyes. This is different. This is temporary, and it's Shane's big chance. It's his 5th big chance in 3 years, I said. Molly. Dad's voice carried a warning through it. Your mother already talked to your uncle about co-signing a lease for Shane, but that would put us on the hook for debt we really can't take on. You could solve this whole problem tonight just by letting him stay in one of your spare rooms. Let him stay, as if Shane were a polite weekend guest and not a grown adult who'd never lived independently, never paid his own utilities, never handled the responsibilities that come with a home. After he left, I sat in my kitchen mentally listing out all the ways my life would change if Shane moved in, even temporarily. My morning routine disrupted by someone else's shower schedule, my evenings filled with his constant noise, my kitchen overtaken by dirty dishes and random leftovers, my peaceful home becoming a shared space where I'd have to negotiate every single decision. Shane had only ever lived at our parents' house. He had no idea what it meant to manage his own life. The idea that Shane would behave like some respectful temporary houseguest was honestly laughable. Friday morning arrived with exactly the text I knew he'd send. Day 4 of sleeping in my car, but hey, at least you get to feel superior about your precious house. That evening, he even showed up at my workplace right as I was closing the shop. He rolled into the lot in the Challenger with the bass shaking the windows and stepped out wearing yet another pricey outfit. Designer jeans and a polo that easily cost more than my whole weekly grocery bill. "We need to settle this," he said, marching toward me as I locked up. "There's nothing to settle," I told him. "Find your own place." "Molly, I've been sleeping in my car for 4 days. 4 days. Do you have any idea what that's like?" I glanced at the Challenger with its leather seats, climate control and fancy stereo system, then looked back at him holding the newest iPhone in one hand. "Actually," I said, "it looks pretty comfortable." His face flushed bright red. "This isn't funny. I'm trying to build a future here, and you're sabotaging me over some petty grudge." "What grudge?" I asked. "You know what grudge," he snapped. "You've always resented me because I'm more successful, more popular, whatever. Now you finally have something I need, and you're using it to get revenge." The total lack of self-awareness was unbelievable. Shane honestly thought he was more successful than me. That sleeping in a car he couldn't afford while pleading for free housing somehow made him the accomplished one. "Shane, I'm not trying to hurt you," I said. "I'm just not going to fix your problems for you." "Fix my problems?" he practically shouted, drawing stares from the people heading to their own cars. "I'm asking my sister for help during a temporary hard time. That's what family does." "No, Shane," I said calmly. "Family shows up for each other's celebrations. Family supports each other's achievements. Family treats each other with respect and consideration." He stared at me, trying to make sense of it. "You're still mad about the housewarming party?" "I'm disappointed," I said, "that the entire family chose to celebrate your car instead of my home." "Yes." He rolled his eyes. "The timing just happened that way." "The timing happened exactly the way you wanted it to," I replied. He looked genuinely baffled, unable to understand why I might be upset about being ignored on one of the biggest days of my life. "Molly, that was practically ancient history." "Ancient history?" "It was 6 days ago," I said before getting into my Honda and driving off. Saturday morning, pounding at my front door yanked me out of bed. Not knocking, actual pounding hard enough to make the frame tremble. I peeked outside and saw Dad's pickup, Mom's car and Shane's Challenger all in my driveway. The three of them were on my porch and Shane looked rough. Wrinkled clothes, scruffy face, hair sticking up, clutching a duffel bag and a laundry basket stuffed with his things. I opened the door, and Mom pushed right past me into my house. "This ridiculous situation ends today," she declared, voice sharp and angry. "Shane slept in his car again because you're too selfish to let him use one of your empty bedrooms." She turned toward me with her hands on her hips like she was about to ground me. "He starts work Monday. He needs to be rested and focused, not exhausted because his own sister refused to help." Shane set his duffel bag down beside my couch without even asking, like he fully intended to move in. "Where exactly is he supposed to put his stuff?" I asked, gesturing to the bag. "The back bedroom," Mom said instantly. "It has the best closet space for his work clothes." Dad stepped forward looking uneasy but resolute. "Molly, this has gone far enough. Shane is family." And then Mom cut in with thick sarcasm. "And this is the house you bought with help from absolutely nobody. Oh wait, except for that tool set your father gave you when you started at the shop, and all those car repairs he taught you, and the time we co-signed that motorcycle loan when you were 19. I just stared at her. The tool set had been a Christmas gift. The car repairs were the kind of basic skills any dad might teach. And the motorcycle loan, which I paid off years early, had been for a used bike that cost all of $3,800. But she twisted those ordinary family moments into some enormous debt I apparently owed, one that obligated me to hand over my house. "You've never had to struggle," she insisted, her voice rising. "Everything's always come easily to you: school, work, saving money. You don't understand real challenges." Everything came easily. 5 years of weekends at work, eating cheap food, skipping anything fun, denying myself every luxury. That didn't count because I'd actually succeeded. "Shane will be staying here during the work week," she declared like a judge passing sentence. "He'll keep his things in the back bedroom, use the main bathroom, and contribute once his checks start coming in." "No," I said quietly. All three of them froze. No, I repeated louder. Shane is not staying here. Not tonight. Not Monday. Not ever. Mom's face first drained of color, then flushed red. Molly, you cannot be serious. I'm completely serious, I said. Shane stepped toward me, his expression shifting to something close to desperation. Molly, please. I'm begging you. This job means everything to me. I just need a few weeks to get started, then I can find my own place. But I already knew how that story would go. A few weeks becoming a few months, then turning into Shane living here indefinitely while spinning excuses about why he still couldn't afford to move out. Find somewhere else, I told him, and that was all it took for Mom to completely explode. How can you be so selfish? How can you just stand there and watch your brother suffer when you're the one person who could help him? She shouted. I'm not making Shane suffer, I said calmly. Shane's poor decisions are making Shane suffer. Poor decisions? She repeated, her voice climbing into that sharp, brittle pitch she hit when she was losing control. Buying a car appropriate for his job is a poor decision? Taking a position with unlimited earning potential is a poor decision? Buying a car he can't afford is a poor decision, I said. Taking a job without planning for basic living expenses is a poor decision. Dad finally stepped in, his voice worn out and serious. Molly, just let him stay until he gets on his feet. No, I said. You're going to destroy his opportunity because of pride, Mom snapped. I'm going to protect my home and my peace of mind, I replied. Mom stared at me like she didn't even recognize me anymore. Like I had suddenly transformed into some cold-hearted stranger. Fine, she said, her voice dropping to a frigid tone. If that's who you really are, then I guess we know where we stand. She grabbed Shane's duffel bag, shoved it into his hands and barked, Come on, Shane. We'll figure out something else. They left without another word, Mom and Dad walking fast toward their cars while Shane lagged behind, glancing back at my house with a look of wounded betrayal. I watched the three of them drive off, then went back inside and locked my door. My hands were shaking, not from fear or guilt, but from an overwhelming sense of relief. For the first time in weeks, my house finally felt like mine again. The days that followed brought a guilt campaign so intense it could have been run by a seasoned political strategist. Texts, voicemails, dramatic social media posts, relatives chiming in with their unsolicited lectures about loyalty and family obligations. But I had made my choice and there was no way I was backing down. 2 weeks later, everything collapsed in the most poetic, karma-soaked way imaginable. I was at work on a Tuesday morning when my phone started blowing up with alerts. Something big was happening online. The first message was from Evan. Did you see Shane's post? I hadn't, but the moment I opened Facebook, there it was. Shane's new profile picture showed him sitting on what looked like a cheap motel bed, and below it was a long dramatic caption. Sometimes life teaches you who your real family is. I just lost my dream job because I couldn't maintain the professional image required in luxury automotive sales. Lost my car this morning to repossession. Guess I learned some people care more about protecting their property than helping their own flesh and blood. Starting over from zero, but at least I know who I can count on. The comments poured in. What happened, Shane? I'm so sorry. Your sister wouldn't help you? That's awful, family should stick together. Before I could even finish scrolling, my phone lit up with Mom calling. Molly, she cried, her voice trembling. Shane lost everything. His job. His car. Everything. And it's your fault. What exactly happened? I asked. He got fired yesterday, she sobbed. He couldn't keep up with the other salespeople because he was exhausted and stressed from his living situation. They took the Challenger this morning since he couldn't make the payment. I felt a complicated mix of sadness for Shane and a heavy sense of vindication. The exact disaster I'd warned everyone about had unfolded step by step. Shane overextended himself, ignored reality, and then everyone expected me to be the cushion for the fall. Where is he staying now? I asked. A budget motel on Route 9. He paid for a week with his final paycheck, she said, then burst into louder sobs. Mom, I'm sorry he's going through this, but it's not my fault. It is your fault, she shouted. He could have kept that job if you had just helped him. He could have made it work. When she hung up, I sat there thinking about cause and effect, responsibility, and the gigantic difference between genuinely helping someone and enabling their reckless decisions. That evening Dad called, sounding defeated and older than I'd ever heard him. "Molly," he said, "Shane's in real trouble. He's talking about leaving town. Says there's nothing left for him here." "Maybe a fresh start would help him," I said. "Your mother's been crying nonstop. She blames herself for pushing him into that job, blames you for not helping him keep it." "Dad, Shane made his own choices," I said. "I know," he whispered. "But he's still your brother." The next day I drove to the motel. When he opened the door, Shane looked like he'd aged years in only 2 weeks. The shiny, overconfident version of him was gone, replaced by someone exhausted and humbled. "Come to see the wreckage," he muttered, but without much bite. "Came to talk," I said. We sat on the stiff motel chairs while he explained everything. He'd lasted only 12 days at Morrison before they fired him for poor performance and attendance issues. He couldn't stay awake during presentations because he barely slept in his car. His first commission check had vanished instantly into the car payment and insurance, leaving nothing for food or living expenses. "I screwed up," he said quietly. "The car, the job, all of it." "You were right, Molly." "I wasn't trying to be right," I said. "I was trying to protect myself." "I know," he replied softly. "And I don't blame you anymore. I spent so long having everyone clean up my messes that I never learned how to fix anything on my own." He looked up with genuine remorse. "I'm sorry, Molly, for assuming I could just take over your house. For the pressure. For the guilt trips. For skipping your housewarming because I was too wrapped up in my own stuff to notice what mattered to you." It was the first real apology I'd ever gotten from anyone in my family throughout the entire ordeal. The next day Mom called with a tone so different it hardly sounded like her. "Molly," she said quietly, "Shane told us he's leaving town. He's going to stay with his friend Tommy in Phoenix and try to start over." "Maybe that's for the best," I said. "I know you're still hurt," she continued. "And you have every right to be. I enabled him. For years. I thought I was helping, but I wasn't. And I leaned on you because you were the responsible one. I expected you to keep being responsible while I sheltered him from consequences." She paused. "And the housewarming, we should have been there. You worked so hard for that home and we didn't show up. I'm sorry, Molly. Can you forgive me?" I looked around at my living room. My space, my peace, my house that I had fought to protect. "Yeah, Mom," I said. "I can forgive you." Shane left for Phoenix the following week. Before he left, he stopped by my house. "I wanted to see it for real," he said, looking around. "The house I tried to move into without permission." I showed him everything: the workshop in the garage, the home office where I organized my finances, the guest room I'd set up for future visitors. Every space reflected 5 years of sacrifice and planning. "I get it now," he said as we stood on the back deck, taking in the yard. "This isn't just a house. It's proof of who you are." 6 months later, Shane called from Phoenix with an update. He'd gotten a job at a Toyota dealership. Nothing glamorous but reliable, with a steady paycheck and manageable commissions. He was renting a tiny studio and driving a used Corolla he'd bought with cash, learning how to live within his means. "It's harder than I expected," he admitted, "being fully responsible for myself. But it's kind of freeing too." Mom and Dad slowly came around again, but gently, respectfully this time. Sunday dinners where they actually listened when I talked. Asked about my projects and my plans. Dad even helped me install new kitchen cabinets. And for the first time in my life, we worked side by side as equals instead of him just telling me what to do.